Good day, everyone. Welcome to our English 4 literature class, and we are now in our lesson 3 for our discussion, and that is entitled To Account for Beginnings. And once again, I am Teacher Carms, and let's get started. So let's go first to our lesson objectives. So at the end of the lesson, you students are expected to first, recall the essential elements of a story. Next, use critical reading strategies to make sense of literary meanings in context. And then, appreciate the diversity of legendary accounts which result from ethnographic differences. And lastly, create a legend. Okay, so before we proceed, class note, let me ask you this question. Have you ever thought of the origins of man and woman? We might be able to learn them uh, by reading it through historical texts, right? And how did science learn about the origins of man and woman? Did you ask yourself about that one? Okay, we can indeed ask these questions, but I'm sure you have heard many stories about the creation of mankind and the world, and we've heard them in works of literature. So, the account of creation's class, okay, will most likely be read and learned through these following texts. Okay, so we have what we call historical texts, scientific texts, and of course, literary texts. So when it comes to historical texts, let's know these are texts use that use the factual information and artifacts to account for the origin of the nations and how they got their names. Right? So, historical text informs the reader about the key events and important people from the past. Okay, so of course, since this is historical text, so it is nonfiction, and we can some examples include autobiographies, biographies, historical research websites, no, and social studies or history books, newspapers, and even encyclopedia. Next is in the scientific text class, this cite facts that indicate what led to invention and discoveries. Okay, so this is more of informing the readers about the concepts in science. But of course, in scientific text, we'll be able to learn um, how this certain aspect or element, or concept in science got or derived their names, like that, right? Okay, so we can usually read nonfiction science books, um, science magazines, textbooks. Okay, all right, and of course, scientific research websites. And finally, we have what we call literary texts that use the imagination and show the origin of things and their names by way of legend. Okay, so um, when it comes to literary text, so it is a piece of written material that is usually fiction, no? That with books or novels, and it also has some poems, no? And the purpose of this text usually is for telling stories, for entertaining, no? Okay, for entertainment like that. All right, so anyway, since our class is literature, so the text that we are focusing is literary. And for today, the literary work that we will be reading is a legend. Okay, so what is a legend, everyone? So legends class are literary texts that is also traditional, that is passed down from one generation to another. So just like what we have discussed, no, kato last time, the proverb and riddle. So this is also a traditional literary work that has started during the pre-colonial up until now. No, in the 21st century, there are also stories that are created, and one of which is legends. So, what exactly is a legend, everyone? Okay, so we have here, no, the definition. So when we say legends, so they highlight cause and effect relationships to show how and why things came to be. It accounts for the creation of something and the origin of its name. Okay, and a legend class is a story. And when we say story, it has particular elements, no, that is shown or narrated in the story. And we will recall our learning about the elements of the story, everyone. And as you can see on the screen, some elements include setting, characters, and plot. Okay, so we are going to first recall the essential elements of the story before we read two literary texts in legend. Okay, so we have here essential elements of a story class. So we have here four, but actually, class, no, this is not only limited to four. There are other elements of a story, but for our discussion, we will focus on these four. Okay, the essential elements of a story. It's like without them, of course, the story cannot be created. Okay, so we have characters, setting, plot, and conflict. Okay, let's start with characters. Okay, so for the characters, we have major characters, no? And the four types of characters. We're going to start with the major characters. We have what we call protagonists and antagonists. So when we say protagonist class, this is actually the main character, no? Considered as the hero. Um, the story revolves around the protagonist class. Okay, so usually um, a good person, a good character. Mhm. That is um, against what we call antagonist. Okay, now this time antagonist is considered as the villain, okay, or the bad guy or bad girl, no, in the story. Okay, so they are opposite to each other class. All right. So, but anyway, I believe that you already know what protagonist and antagonist is, class, no? I'm sure you are familiar with that already. Now let's go to the four types of characters. So, I believe you have encountered these terms also before, but let's try to recall them. Okay. So, um, by the way, the types of character is not also limited to only four, but for this discussion, we will focus on these four. So we have what we call static, dynamic, flat, and round character. So we are going to define each, and we will also try to identify a certain example of these types of characters. Okay. All right. So we are actually going to divide this into two now and differentiate them. So we're going to start with static versus dynamic. Okay, so static versus dynamic characters refer to whether or not a character or the characters changed throughout the story. So that's what you're going to remember, class, the word change. Okay, so when it comes to static character, so static, okay, this character never change. So he or she is a character that does not have or does not change throughout the story. So their use may simply be to create or relieve tension, or they were not meant to change. No, so a major character can remain static through the whole story. So again, our um, key term to that is change for the static, never change. Okay, for the dynamic, this one now has some changes. Okay, so the characters change throughout the story. They may change because they may learn a lesson. Maybe from good they become bad, or from bad they become good, or change in complex ways as a result of conflicts in the story. Okay, so that is dynamic. So again, when we say static character, no changes. Dynamic, there are some changes. Okay. Another pair of the type of character is round versus flat character. So for the round and flat character, um, it talks about whether a character has deep layered characteristics or character traits. Okay, it focuses on the characteristics or character traits. So we have what we call flat character and round character. So when we say flat character, it's also called underdeveloped. Okay, so underdeveloped because it has only one or two main character traits or qualities. It's like usually only all positive or negative. So we can only see one side of this character. And usually does not have any flaws for the story to address and resolve. Okay. On the other hand, the round character is well developed. It has many different traits, good and bad, um, and many other, making them more interesting. So the character is complex and may have internal conflict. So usually the main characters are round characters. Okay. So I hope the definition of these terms are clear for you. Now let's try to identify um, this one. Are you familiar with this film? This movie? Okay, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with this one, right? Okay, so let's try to identify from the characters of Frozen 1 um, who among them is considered static, dynamic, flat, and round. So we're going to start with the static character. So who do you think, class, is considered a static character? Okay, by the way, if you want to challenge yourself identifying the type of character these characters are, you may pause the video. Okay, but let's answer now. No, so if your answer is Olaf, then you are correct. Olaf is a static character because Olaf does not and actually did not change all throughout the story. No, he remains sweet, friendly, and just like warm hugs, right? Okay, and even like summer. Okay, so Olaf is considered a static character. Next, who do you think is dynamic character or characters? If your answer is Elsa and Anna, then you are right. Okay, both of them change over the course of the story. So, Elsa was once scared and strict, but later on, when she discovered her potentials, she became brave, right? And then Anna is sweet and hopeful, but she changed when she fell in love with the prince. So she then disobeyed her sister. But in the end, she realized her sister is right. So, thus, both of them have some changes as a result of events in the story. So, they are considered as dynamic character. And actually, class, there is also another one that is considered as dynamic character, and that is the prince. The prince in this story, no? So he is also dynamic because at first he was nice, right? Very nice to Anna. That's why Anna fell in love with him. But in the later part of the story, he changed, and all he wanted was to become a king. And the change there is very obvious, so he is considered also as a dynamic character. Okay, let's go to flat and round. So, who do you think is the flat character here? Just a simple character with only one or two character traits? Okay, so the flat character here is Kristoff. Okay, so um, okay, so yes, Kristoff. No, the reader just know a little bit about his life. No, the viewers just cannot identify more character traits of Kristoff. So that's why he is considered as a flat character. So his role is just very simple. No? Okay. And finally, round characters. So who do you think is or are considered as a round character or characters? Okay. So if you answered Anna and Elsa, then you are correct. So they have fully developed thoughts, feelings, complexities, and even desires class. So they have not just one or two character traits, but many more. Okay, so their character traits is mainly, of course, because of the conflict that is happening in the story that has taken place. No, okay, so their decisions make the story more interesting. So that's what makes them, round characters. And as what I have mentioned, usually the main characters are round characters. Yes. Okay, so that's it for the four types of characters, everyone. So again, we identified um, the static and dynamic characters, at the same time the round and the flat characters. Okay, now let's move on to the next element of the story, which is a setting. So this is just very easy, to identify, because when we say setting, that refers to the time and place, or when and where the story happens. So usually this is introduced during the beginning of the story, or what we call the exposition, along with the characters. So they may also include the environment of the story, like the physical location, climate, the weather, or social and cultural surroundings. Okay, this is also a very important element of the story, of course, right? Another element of a story is plot. So a plot refers to the sequence or the events in the story. Okay, and I'm sure that you class, you are familiar with the elements of a plot. Okay, and these are exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, or denouement. Okay, so let's recall them. We have here the diagram of a plot. This is how it looks like, no? Okay, so first of all, the first element of a plot is exposition. So that's in the beginning of the story. So the exposition exposes the characters, the setting, and eventually exposes also the start of conflict. All right. So they are typically introduced in exposition. Okay. The next element to that is rising action. In the rising action, the main character now is in crisis, and there are events leading up to facing the conflict. Yeah, that begins to unfold. Okay, so um, this time now the story becomes complicated in the rising action. Okay, next to that, the top in the diagram is climax. So climax is the peak of the story. So the main event of the story occurs in which the main character now faces the conflict. All right, so this is when the most action, drama, change, and even excitement occurs in climax. Okay. Now, next to that is falling action. So, in the falling action, the story begins to slow down, okay, and work towards the end, tying loose ends of the plot. So, in the falling action, the conflict has started to resolve. Okay. And finally, the last part of the element of a plot is resolution, or also known as denouement. So the resolution is when conflicts are already resolved and the story concludes. Mhm. So we'll be able to know if the story will have happy ending or tragic. Okay, so whatever it is, so that's what we call the end of the story, resolution. Okay, so again, the five elements of a plot are exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Okay, so I hope you have recalled your learning about that one. Now let's go to the fourth element of a story, and that is a conflict. Okay, this is also very essential in the story because without a conflict, the story is boring. Do you agree? Okay, so conflict has the primary problem that the characters in a story experience. So this is a driving force in any story as it influences the turn of events in the plot. So the conflict class is divided into two. We have what we call internal conflict, and the other one is external conflict. So for the external conflict, it has some examples here. Man versus man. Okay, so as we all know, when we say man versus man, okay, this is between characters versus characters. No? So um, in this kind of conflict, typically it has some physical fight, or it can be a battle of minds, like that. No? Mm-mm. Conflict between the characters. It's man versus man. Next is man versus nature, from the term nature, no? So a character or group of characters are, you know, against natural forces, weather changes such as storms, and probably against animals too, no? So it usually reveals something about human nature, such as man's fight to life and his perseverance to face, chaos. So usually that's what we can see in man versus nature. Next is man versus society. All right. So it's when usually about it tells us about some corrupt or unjust legal systems, culture, or other entities in the society, So in this conflict, the characters struggle against ideas, practices, or customs of other people. That's man versus society. Another conflict is man versus supernatural. So from its term, it has some supernatural powers or magic. So the characters struggle against supernatural forces or high powers, such as witches, aliens, gods, goddesses, and even monsters, ghosts, or whatever supernatural forces it can be. Okay, man versus technology is the last example. Um, this is a conflict between characters and the results of scientific discoveries class. Yeah, that's man versus technology. Okay, the other category is what we call internal conflict. And for this discussion, I just got one example for that, and that is man versus self. So, man versus self focuses on psychological struggle that the character is facing. So, it is, you know, psychological. So, probably the man is struggling with his own behavior and with his own mindset and struggles in decision making. So, that's man versus self. Okay, so I know, class, when we talk about conflicts, I know you have some movies on your mind that you have already watched, or you have some stories that you have already read, and you were able to identify what kind of conflict this story may have. Okay, so yeah, that's it, everyone. Also, again, we talked about the four essential elements of a story. So we have characters, setting, plot, and of course, this one, conflict. Okay, so now that we have reviewed or recalled or learning about the elements of a plot, this time I'm now going to introduce to you two legends. Okay, all right, and the title of the legends that you are going to read is first the creation of the world, and the other one is on the origin of Earth and man. Okay, so the following are actually two different accounts of creation of the world coming from two Bicol groups. Okay, so I want you, class, to go over it, and I want you to read it on your own. But actually, I'm also going to read it here for our recorded discussion. No? And when you read this one again, I want you to find out some cultural elements that these two legends incorporated in their stories and how they differ in their accounts of the creation. Okay, because they actually have similar concept, creation of the world and man, but they have also, you know, differences in their stories, in their plot. And I want you guys to identify that one. Okay, so now allow me to read to you the two legends, and we're going to start with the creation of the world. Okay, so while we are reading this one, class, no, you may start identifying the characters, the setting, the conflict, yeah, and um, the plot, no? Okay, for your comprehension, and of course, in preparation for our upcoming activity for this lesson. Let's get started. The creation of the world. Thousands and thousands of years ago, there was a time when the space occupied by the universe was vacant. The moon, the sun, the stars, and the earth were conspicuous by their absence. Only the vast expanse of water and the sky above it could be seen. The kingdom of the sky was under the rule of great god Langit, while the water was under the sovereignty of the god Tubigan. Langit had a daughter called Dagat, the sea, who became the wife of Paris, the wind, who was the son of Tubigan. Four children were born to Dagat and Paris, three of whom were boys called Daga, Aldao, and Bulan, and one girl called Bituon. Daga, a young man, possessed a body of rock. Aldao, a jolly fellow, had a body of gold. Bulan, a copper-made man, was a weakling, while the beautiful Bituon was made of pure silver. After the death of their father Paros and after the death of their father Paros, Daga, being the eldest son, succeeded in control of the winds. Soon, Dagat, the mother, died, leaving her children under the care of the grandparents Langit and Tubigan. After assuming control of the winds, Daga became arrogant and ambitious, desiring to gain more power. So he induced his younger brothers to attack the kingdom of Langit. At first, they refused. At Daga's anger, Bulan and Eldao were constrained to join him in his plot. Preparations were made, and when everything was ready, they set out on their expedition and began to attack the gates of the sky. Failing to open the gates, Daga let loose the winds in all directions so that the gate was destroyed, and the brothers succeeded in gaining entrance. But they were met by the enraged Langit, who sent out 3 bolts of lightning after them. All of them were struck by lightning. the copper body of Bulan melted into a ball. So also with the golden body of Aldao. Daga's body fell into the sea and became what is now the earth. Their sister Bituon, on discovering the absence of her brothers, went out to look for them. But upon meeting the enraged god Langit, Bituon was also struck by another bolt of lightning which broke her body into many pieces. Then Langit descended from the sky and called to Wigan and accused him of helping their grandsons in their attack on his kingdom. But Tubigan defended himself, saying he had no knowledge about the attack, for he was asleep far down into the sea. Tubigan succeeded in pacifying Langit, and the two regretted and wept over the loss of their grandchildren. Since they could not revive them, they gave each body a light. Then the body of Bulan became the moon, Aldao became the sun, and the beautiful Bituan became the stars in the heaven. But to Daga, they did not give light, and his body became the land on earth. Tubigan then planted a seed which grew into a bamboo tree. From one of its branches came a man and a woman, who became the first parents of the human race. Three children were born to them. One, called Maisog, invented a fish trap. One day, he caught such a very big and grotesque-looking whale that he thought it was a god, so he ordered his people to worship it. The people gathered around and began to pray. But no sooner they had begun when gods from the sky appeared and commanded Maisog to throw the whale to the water and worship no one but the gods. But Maisog was not afraid and defied the gods. Langit, the king of the sky, struck Maisog with lightning and stunned him. Then he scattered the people over the earth as a punishment. In this way, the earth was peopled. Maisog's body was blackened by the lightning, and all his descendants are black. But Maisog's son was carried to the north and became the parent of the white people. His other children were brought to the south, where the sun was hot, and it scorched their bodies so that all their people were of brown color. The other people were carried to the east, where they had to feed on clay due to scarcity of food. Because of this diet, their descendants were of yellow color. And that's the end of our first story, entitled The Creation of the World. Okay, so I hope you were able to imagine what happened in this story while you are listening to me and while you are reading. Okay, this time let's go to the next legend, and this is entitled On the Origin of Earth and Man. Let's start. Many, many years ago, there was no earth or man. There was only the sky. Now, in the sky, there were two brothers, Bulan and Adlao. The latter was the older and the stronger, but the former was proud and hated his older brother. One day, they had a quarrel. Bulan hurled bad words to Adlao, claimed superiority, and challenged Adlao to a fight. The older brother only laughed at his younger brother. But his laugh was answered by Bulan, who bellowed, "You coward! Come and fight, and I will show you my superiority. If you don't fight, I will kill you." And Bulan suddenly rushed to Adlao without waiting for an answer. Adlao was angered, and he was forced to fight his younger brother. and the fight commenced. It was a clash between two strengths. With his club, Bulan hit Adlaw, but Adlaw dodged the hit quickly. Then Bulan used his polo, but again he missed Adlaw. It was Adlaw's turn to hit, so with his club, he hit with all his might. First the eye of Bulan, then the arm of Bulan, which became flat at the might of the stroke. Then with his polo, he cut Bulan's flattened arm. When Bulan's eye was hit and his arm was flattened and cut from his body, he cried with pain. His tears fell on the cut flattened arm. As Bulan foresaw his defeat with only one eye and one arm to fight with, he fled, and he was pursued by Adla, who was very angry and wanted to kill Bulan. And they kept running on and on, chasing each other. Now, the cut flattened arm of Bulan, with his tears, fell down and down, down and down it went until it finally settled. The flattened arm of Bulan became the earth, and the tears became the river and seas. Time came when the two hairs sprang from Bulan's cut arm, and from these two hairs sprang man and woman. Thus, the earth and man came into being. And that's the end of the second legend entitled On the Origin of Earth and Man. Okay? Alright. So if you notice, class, the two legends, they have similar concept, no? The creation of the world and how men and women came to be. Okay. But of course, they also have its difference. No? Differences in the characters, the plot, and differences also in the first part, no, in the setting, and even the number of generations, class, if you notice that one. Okay, the other one is a bit longer, and then this one is shorter. Okay, so anyway, I'll leave you to reading this one again, review this one, because we will have an activity in our next meeting. Okay, and you have to also prepare for upcoming comprehension activity for these two legends, everyone. Okay, so that's it for our recorded discussion for the lesson 3. I hope you enjoy reading the story and listening to me. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. So see you in the next discussion. Bye, class, and have a great day.